Good day, Internet.
What's going on, Internet?
Internet?
Hello, Internet.
I don't know if I believe in the Internet.
But yeah,
Thomas.
my nephew, because of his size, playing football when he was before his senior year, of course, he always had to play. Actually, before he got to high school, he had to play like unlimited, and he was so big that he couldn't even play like unlimited, which meant he could only play on the offensive line. He had to actually play up a team and only could play on the offensive line.
Wow.
Because like he was just massive. He was just a big giant kid, and it's funny to look at him because he's no longer big. He's just really tall. He's 6'7", and he's probably 240.
Yeah.
So he literally lost like
he's 6'7" and he's only 240.
but he was like 320.
Huh.
So he was like 6'4", 320 when he was playing football, and then when he said, "I'm done with this," he just stopped doing football things, and he lost an enormous amount of weight, but kept getting taller. So he went from looking like, looking like Orlando Pace to looking like, Paul Pierce. Because he's not small, but he's not.
Over what course of time did that transformation happen?
He probably lost 80 pounds in 16 months.
Wow.
See, that's why Scott got up and left his seat, because he's so pissed. He's like, I want to do that.
Yeah, it was from when he was done playing football his junior year, because he stopped playing after his junior year.
Yeah.
And so from the end of football junior year till the time he just graduated, he's lost all that weight. And now he doesn't even look the same.
How old is he now?
He's 18. He just graduated high school.
Oh, so he just this is we don't know where it ends.
Right. It's like I've seen him probably 3 times in the last year, and each time I saw him, he was like 20, 30, 40 pounds lighter than he was the previous time that I saw him.
Scott, is that why you walked away? Because you didn't want to hear a story about a kid losing that much weight?
It made me want to pee, so I had to pee. I was like, man, this kind of talk.
Scott's jealous. He's like, I wish I could do that.
And I realized, oh, wait, we got like 5 minutes. I better hurry up and do that.
Are your nephew's parents tall, like very tall as well?
So my brother actually isn't terribly tall. He played linebacker in college, but he's only like 5'11". But his mom is 6'3".
Wow.
So that's where the height's coming
That's
from.
some good. That's my height. Yeah.
Yes,
I don't like being 6'3". It sucks. I'll be honest. I think that stuff aches worse. Your circulation starts to suck as you get older. And, well, it used to be a problem in movie theaters. Not anymore because stadium seating. But back in the day, I'd like hunch way down. So it kind of blows. And you never see really tall, really old people. So name the last time you saw like an 80-year-old tall guy. You don't see him.
But isn't that just a tall person who shrunk? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right. I was thinking the same thing. Like maybe they just all shrink.
Maybe
you'll be like 5'3" by the time you're 80.
When my dad passed away, he was maybe 5'5", 5'6", but I remember him being 5'7". But over time, I mean, you're kind of like a raisin.
Well, then I'll lose an inch, is what you're saying, which is not a lot. But yeah.
So, Rob, is your nephew not playing college sports then?
Nah, he was okay football player, but it was just like, this is not my thing. So it's like, my brother's like, I'm not going to force him to play just because he's tall. He's kind of wishing that maybe he didn't know he was going to get that tall. Maybe I should have played basketball.
There's no pointing at Uncle Rob, like, in his day, at your age.
Back in Rob's day.
Well, you don't have to go with me. His dad played college football.
His dad played too.
His dad played too. So.
Has he expressed any interest in another sport, maybe like that isn't like volleyball, like something that would take advantage of his obvious physical height, but not necessarily
esports?
Oh wait,
esports.
He's super easy.
He's got reach for those controllers.
Yeah, keyboard and mouse in that case, I guess.
Yeah.
What's he like? League or something, or what's he play? Do you know?
I know he plays Madden.
Oh,
because that's what I play when I play with him. So it's Madden, but no, it's one of those kids where he played from the time he was in Pop Warner. He got to his junior year, and that really football players, you really start to notice the difference between like your sophomore and junior year on who is just on the team and who's going to potentially do it at the next level.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't think I'm going to college for this, and it's like, I'm not going to go to college. There's other things I could be doing with my time, except as compared to being in a football stadium on the field every Friday night. So he just decided he didn't want to play his senior year.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, and you have to these days if you want to compete, you have to be playing the whole time. Like you got to start young. There's very few people start playing something in college. And
6'9".
That is true.
How do you even find clothes that fit at that point where it's like?
Oh, he's not 6'9", he's 6'7".
no, he's
I
referring
mean,
to Stealth Dave's chat.
Oh.
I was the tallest in my family for 5 generations until my nephew took the crown 3 years ago. He's 19 and 6'9".
Oh, he's not done yet either.
No.
No.
But
No,
like,
he
I
is
mean,
not.
that must be like such a chore to find apparel.
I don't know. Let's
And
have
also
get Jason
just
Howell
walking
back on
through
the show and ask him.
doorways.
Big and tall, baby.
DXL,
Yeah.
JC Penney's big and tall section.
Yeah. They do all right over there.
Yeah.
J.C. Penney's I still think is a very underrated department store because
Did any of your parents make clothes for you when you were a kid?
Oh, yeah. My mom did.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
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 They weren't great. I'll say that. They were
like they
pretty
weren't
bad.
great at it, or they just weren't great results.
I'm going to say the results were, well, I don't know. One leads to the other, right? She wasn't very good at it. I'll just say that. It's fair.
I remember
my-
shopping for patterns. We'd go
My-
to the
my friend-
the Ben
Yeah.
Franklin. And
The freaking material, what are those called? The fabric stores.
fabric
Probably
store.
get stuck
Yeah.
in there a lot.
Oh,
Yeah.
like Joanne.
Joann
Oh,
Fabrics.
that's not around anymore. But
we didn't.
no,
have
I have a
Joann's.
friend
We
who
weren't
used to
fancy
make
like
her
you.
kids or make her son's clothes.
Yeah.
And at some point,
We'd go to the Ben Franklin and then go to the little rack, and Mom would slip through. She'd buy some dress patterns for herself, some kids' clothes.
The Ben Franklin.
I had a coworker
And then buy the
who
cloth.
made a dress and drapes out of the same fabric.
Yeah,
And she said like it was a great deal. I couldn't pass up
yeah.
on it. And might as well
Don't want to
use
waste
all
that
of it.
fabric, right?
People would say the drapes match the dress or something like that.
Yes.
Sure.
That's
what I was
the actual
thinking.
meaning of that phrase before it got repurposed
Yep.
for other things. Yeah.
I'm just thinking, I don't know. What do I know?
I mean, it's funny when you said Ben Franklin, Tom. The first thing that popped into mind is like, oh, you guys collected those coins too, like for the Ben Franklin. Mint
Oh,
that
the
used to-
Franklin Mint
Franklin
thing?
Yeah.
Mint.
used to have
Did
those.
I
ads
don't
all
know what areas had the Ben Franklin stores. It started in Boston, but it was in Illinois. So
Well, as a kid, when I saw the word mint, I thought, oh, it must be like an official government thing, and they're just pounding out these commemorative things. But
that was
the
cool
Ben
for a while.
Franklin chain filed for bankruptcy in 2017, but there are some of its stores continuing to use the name,
Oh, goodness.
even though the chain is gone.
They should call it
lightning on a key in a kite.
2-minute warning.
Spend all your time in France. Isn't that what he did?
Oh, he no, he
We
did
need
that.
France
He
a
did
lot.
that initially. Yeah.
Sometime in France.
He also wooed the ladies with his deft playing of what's the that instrument like where it's like a glass cylinder, and you kind of wet it a little bit, and you can play like, like when you rubbed your finger around the top of like a champagne glass,
Yeah.
and it makes it. Well, there was an instrument back in the day that's sort of based on that. It looks like a long elongated cylinder, and then there's different glass sizes.
Those bowls.
hoops in
It's
it.
glass bowls that are attached,
Bowls,
and you
yeah.
use that to kind of,
And you play it sort of like
I
It
don't
was
know what-
it was
never
it was
even heard of
the what's the electronic thing that you don't touch? Thermo, not
The theremin.
Theremin. It was the theremin of its day. It was the theremin of its day. Although you had to touch it.
Yeah, well, like you do.
I mean, theremins are pretty cool. You can make one.
They are cool. I think theremins are rad. I'm not here to complain about a theremin. They're pretty cool.
And then if you tie it into your steering wheel, then you can make wacky noises as you drive through your
And
day.
some people are really good at theremins, and some people are very bad at them. But the ones that are good are impressive.
Theremin therapy. That's what I say.
Has your
Crazy.
nephew thought of taking up the theremin, Rob?
I can say.
Can say or you
18-year-old
won't
nephew
say?
talks to his 50-something-year-old uncle about as much as you would expect.
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah.
30
My
seconds.
my nieces are still in the we love Tita and Tito phase of their life, but someday those days will end. So.
That's no. That's why you keep coming with the endless boxes of we brought something for you. And then you
Yeah.
talk to them. About
Just always have gifts.
it. Yeah, that's what my grandparents used to do.
Just
Those
always
gifts
have a
can't
gift
be
handy.
advice.
I mean, the gifts fall. Oh,
Have a good show, everybody.
Good day, Internet. This is DTNS Live for Wednesday, July 9th, 2025 in Los Angeles. From Studio 7, I'm Tom Merritt.
From Columbus, Ohio, I'm Robb Dunewood.
Here in Salt Lake City, I'm Scott Johnson.
here I'm at. I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang.
DTNS Live is made possible by you, the listener, thanks to all of you, including Tim Deputy, Brandon Brooks, and Johnny Hernandez.
Woo-hoo! Awesome.
Love the patrons, without which we would have no show. Welcome to DTNS Live. Everybody come on in. This is the show where we talk about tech and whatever else is on our mind to just help us all make it through somehow. How are you doing? It's good to have Scott Johnson and Robb Dunewood together on a show for once. This doesn't happen all that often.
We don't do it very often, but when it happens, I was telling Robb this kind of pre-show. It always feels good to me. It always feels right. So,
and it wasn't that long ago. Like we went years from the last time, but it's only been probably a month or 6 weeks since the last time we were both
that's
on together.
that's the crazy thing is it's very infrequent, but when it happens, the world's never quite the same.
It's
and
random.
Then you know,
Yeah.
It's like rain. When it rains, it pours. Right?
It's such a good thing that Laminar Rainbow gave us a super sticker. Thank you.
Oh,
Laminar.
nice.
Oh, thank you.
so
Nice.
much.
That's very sweet.
It's a laminated sticker.
Well, if you're listening live, you get to name the episode. You know, it's kind of like when you're at the hospital and the parents are like, we didn't think of a name. And then they call for a specialist. You know how that happens? That doesn't happen,
No,
does it?
not that often.
But if that were to happen, that's what this would be like. So head on over to dtns.showbot.tv and submit titles and vote on them. That's actually the other fun part. Like, it's fun to come up with a title and submit them, and we get some great ones. But if you're watching, you can be like, "Ooh, that's a funny one." You know, you can push it up the list, so it has a better chance of getting selected. So go do that right now.
And you can submit and vote more than once too. So
that's
you
true.
can do it multiple times.
It's like an election in 1800s Chicago.
Wow.
Let's kick it off with a few stories that caught our eye. Hugging Face is accepting pre-orders for its open source Reachy Mini desktop robot kits. You build these into a stuffed animal-sized robot that has screens for eyes and 2 antennas, uses the Hugging Face Hub machine learning platform, and is programmable in Python. A lot of DIY going on here. There are some pre-made things, but you can program a lot of it yourself. You can order the Reachy Mini wireless version, which comes with a Raspberry Pi 5 inside for $449, or the Reachy Mini Lite, which has to be plugged into a computer for $299, and shipping will begin next month.
It's pretty cool. As much as I feel like we're about to be so inundated with AI models in every single device, a little robot on my desk connected to some pretty good models, giving me good information and feedback. It sounds okay.
Yeah, a little maker project. You can tweak it, make it do what you want. It's not super expensive, especially the one you plug in. So
Yeah.
Not at all. They're super cute looking, and it gives me the old Lego robot and Erector vibes from back when we were kids. So this is pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, I like it. I think the term "reachy" is a little reachy because it's like
it's a little
not
weird.
Really. It's no arms.
Jen Cutter
coming
was
out.
having issues with it this morning on briefing. She's like, so you're making me say Reachy how many times?
I mean, it is one that are shy of being a little maybe too advice centric.
Sure. But it's got
Maybe
400,000 data sets. These AI models, though, it's a lot on a little device like
Maybe
that.
they can get Christina Ricci to.
Huh?
Tom, you and your ideas.
Warner Brothers officially changed the name of its streaming service back to HBO Max. The company actually officially changed the name from HBO Max to just Max back in 2023, but the move was generally panned as horrible, and most people who knew the name as HBO Max never stopped calling it HBO Max. Warner Brothers isn't making users jump through the hoops as it adopts the new old name this time. The old Max app just will update to the new HBO Max, where users had to install the old Max app to replace the old HBO Max app last time. It's not confusing so long as you don't think about it.
That's right. That's right. Now, let's talk about HBO Go and HBO Now as well. Fit those. No, we'd be here all day if we did that. Honestly, I don't really care. I got used to calling it Max. I'll go back to calling it HBO Max. That's fine. Like whatever, as long as it's got good content in there, which it often does. I'm cool with it.
Yeah, that's the weird thing about it is it never really dropped the ball on content quality. It did add a bunch of stuff you could question the quality of, like some of the Discovery stuff was maybe less than you'd expect from a HBO fronted service. But I always thought it was weird. You take your best brand, your prestige brand, and you hide it behind this thing, and then it's confusing because it's like, well, wait, Max, is that short for Cinemax? And who owns that now? And like,
No,
just
it was
confusing.
the maximum quality you could get.
I think a lot of people are having a "I told you so" moment for a giant company that probably doesn't care that we think that. I'm sure this is a money move and makes sense.
Yeah, but ultimately doesn't mean anything to have the kind of "I told you so" moment. I mean, I guess if you live for those moments.
Sure.
Speaking of moments, Linda Yaccarino has taken her moment to step down as CEO of X this morning after taking up the role 2 years ago, although she has yet to publicly explain the reason for her departure. She posted on X, "After 2 incredible years, I've decided to step down as CEO of X." Now, Verge notes this comes after XAI, which also owns X, updated its Grok chatbot to be quote-unquote less politically correct, resulting in a series of anti-Semitic posts and criticisms of those.
Now, I've seen a lot of people make that correlation, but here's what I'd ask you as a scientist. If she had stepped down any other time, would you also have some other controversy related to X that you could point to and go, it happened at the same time as this other controversy on X?
Yeah.
Because I feel like every day of the year, there's a controversy on X like this. So I'm not shocked that she finally stepped down. I'm just not convinced it has anything to do with anything else other than having to work at X for that long.
I can only imagine the amount of fire she had to put out during her tenure there. That there's just lots.
And now we don't have to
things
clarify when we say ex-CEO Linda Yaccarino.
That's right.
It just works. I fully expected this. I said, why would she go here in the first place? And I said, well, there's probably an incredibly large bag that has a number of days that she needs to be at this company to acquire. And my gut tells me that it's somewhere around 365 times 2 because she's been there 2 years and now she's leaving. I fully expected that she was not going to be there long term. It just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
That might have been in her agreement. Like, you'll stay here 2 years. And she's like, great, got to my 2-year mark.
Yeah, I mean, who among us? Well,
Hey,
I don't
you
want to
guys,
make any
whoever
moral
wants my stuff
judgments.
on my desk, go at it. I'm grabbing my muffin and coffee.
You kind of knew it was happening when she never moved any pictures into her office.
Oh no, she left the pictures that come with the photo
with the
frames when you buy them.
frame.
Yeah. I think Tom's right, though. There could have been any number of other reasons that you could point at and go, well, it's because this is happening on the platform. I think it just was bad.
Maybe
timing.
it did, maybe it didn't. But yeah, there's no reason to believe that or not, honestly.
Yeah.
We
don't have enough information, basically.
Well, those are the top 3 stories that caught our eye today. Samsung announced its new foldables at an event in New York this morning. Robb is our resident Samsung enthusiast here. Robb, what'd you think of this announcement?
So the last few, I would say probably for the last few years, the Samsung Unpacked events, they've basically been hour and 10-minute commercials, and this one didn't disappoint. That's pretty much what this was. Yeah. There was really nothing that was announced here that we didn't know was coming. So, the flagship is the Galaxy Z Fold 7. It came out. We knew it was coming out. It is incredibly thin. This phone is only 4.2 millimeters thick when it's unfolded, and it is only 8.9 millimeters thick when it's folded. So I've got the flagship Galaxy S25. This is 8.2 millimeters. This foldable phone is only 0.7 millimeters thicker than my phone. If I were to go back a couple of years to my Galaxy S22, this is also 8.9 millimeters thick. So the thing here is just how thin they were able to make this phone. It is pretty impressive.
Yeah, pretty wild on that front. That's the thing that impressed me the most when I started seeing photos come out. I was like, how are they getting it?
And it does sort of address one of the bigger complaints about that form factor is that, like, when you fold it over, it's a little too thick, right? When you fold it out, it's fine. But I'm impressed. I'm curious to see how it holds up to normal people use over a year.
So if you stack it folded next to one of your phones, Rob, it's not much thicker, right? That's the point.
I'm holding up a Galaxy S22 Ultra. Yeah. So this is the 3-year-ago flagship from Samsung.
Yeah.
The fold is the same thickness as this phone is. Exactly the same, 8.9 millimeters thick. And it's a folding phone. So that is impressive how thin they got this thing. Now, it's also got a 6.5-inch outer display, so they made it a little bit wider. I kind of like that because one of the things about the Fold is that it felt like you were using a Snicker bar when you actually fold it up. It was really thin. They have made it a little bit wider, and then the other stuff is stuff that we kind of knew. So it's using the 8 Elite processor from Snapdragon, 16 gigs of RAM, terabyte of storage, 200 megapixel camera. So it's stuff that we knew was coming. And the price is $19.99 to start. It gets a little bit more expensive than that depending on what you put in it. Samsung also announced the Galaxy Z Flip 7. We knew that was coming. It is just a better version of their flip device. It's actually got a really, really nice outer screen on it where you're using it when it is folded in half. That screen is pretty impressive. But same thing here. There was just nothing out of the ordinary with this. We knew it was coming. This device is starting at $1,099.99. The new addition to the lineup was the Galaxy Z Flip 7e. This is the fan edition, so it is a Z Flip 7. It's a little bit thicker, a little bit less horsepower in it, less battery in it, but it costs a little bit less. This one is starting at $899.
Yeah, so I'm happy to see the Fold 7 get that bigger screen because that's why I like my Pixel Fold. It just feels like a phone when it's folded. And everybody's saying, I talked to Ron Richards about it this morning for briefing, that it looks like a phone now, where it looked like you said, like a Snickers bar before. And everybody, Honor, Oppo, everybody's doing the thinness. So that's the new thing. The Flip 7, however, is the largest cover screen. They actually made that cover screen bigger than the Razr. And I think that's pretty cool. But again, that's not the thing that's going to make everyone rush out and buy this if they weren't already interested. It might make them pick the Flip instead of the Razr, but it's you've got to have people who are interested in that clamshell form factor already.
It's got to be. I mean, the closer we get to this being more of a practical choice for people, and I feel like that's where we're at in this iterative process Samsung's going through along with other phone makers. I'm starting to see it come to this important point of this foldable is now one I would choose over another normal flat single panel phone.
Yeah.
And it's taken a little while to get there. That's how all this stuff works, but I'm starting to see it. It's starting to make me go, oh man, could I do a
Nobody
foldable?
Talks about the hinges anymore. No. We're well past that. People don't even really talk about the divot much anymore because they've made it so it's barely noticeable.
Yeah.
I would say it's like past the novelty phase for a lot of people where it is an option, depending on what they want, what they need, and what they can kind of get a deal on. But kind of reminds me with cars where for a while, like everyone either wanted a sedan, like 4-door or coupe, and then people had like SUVs. It's like, oh, that's kind of weird, but I don't really go off-roading. I don't need an SUV. And suddenly, it became one of the most popular car segments because it had the space and people like the higher seating position. And so I think that's where we're trending, where people will see this and say, like, hey, that's a definite option. It's definitely something I would consider. I would not.
Are you saying foldables are for families?
I mean.
Or am I pushing your metaphor too far?
A family that folds together stays together. Sure.
Yeah, but there's definitely, There's definitely sort of I don't want to say generational, but definitely a sensibility kind of transition where people are like, well, everyone has one of these. I want something that's a little different, but still practical for my needs. Where it is sort of stylistically unique, at least for the moment.
Well, the thing about foldables as someone who has one is that you forget that it's special. You forget that it's different. It just becomes a thing where you're like, I tend to use my Pixel Fold from the main screen most of the time. And then I'll just naturally be like, oh, I need to see that in the bigger screen and open it up. I stopped going like, ooh, I get to open it up a long time ago. It's just a function of what this phone could do now.
They're no longer gimmicky. They're just phones now. So even when you're in the wild and you see someone with one, it doesn't really strike you as odd. It's like your phone just folds up.
Stop and go, whoa.
It's just
the future.
It's just a phone at this point. But Samsung also announced 3 new watches. So you've got the Galaxy Watch 8 series of devices that have come out. So the big daddy is the Galaxy Watch Ultra. that does all the stuff. It has 64 gigabytes of RAM on this thing, and it has a 590 milliamp hour battery on it. That's a lot in a watch. I mean, that's a big hooking watch. It's pretty impressive there. Then you have the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic. This is if you like that more, that more sports watch type look with the bezel that you can turn on it. That's actually my style. If I were to get one of these, I probably would go with the Classic. I didn't say that the Ultra, the price on that starts at $649.99. The Classic is $499.99, and then there is just the Galaxy Watch 8, which starts at $349.99. That one's got 2 gigabytes of RAM and up to 32 gigabytes of storage. So nothing that we didn't know was coming. We've been hearing about these watches for months now.
Yeah, the big deal was the Watch 8 comes in 40 millimeter now, not just 44 millimeters. So you can actually get a smaller watch. Mm-hmm. A lot of people were like, I'd like a Galaxy Watch 8, but it's too big for my wrist. So now they got smaller versions, which again that's not the like mind-blowing feature that will make everyone rush out and buy it. But it's convenient, so I don't want to downplay it too much.
I think it's funny that these watches are almost single-handedly making LTE stay around. Like we need it for also when your 5G drops and you're in like more limited spaces or whatever. But
sure,
I kind of like that watches can pull that in and not use
too
too much power.
LTE off. I think I'm going to cancel the subscription for my watch because I don't need it. I never
use it. Battery
use it.
drain for you mostly? Or
it was
it's
starting to be a battery drain because I have a 6. I have an Apple Watch 6, which is
right.
super old, right? But then now that I've turned it off, I've never noticed a moment where I'm like, oh, right, I turned the LTE off. So I'm like, I don't think I need to subscribe to that anymore.
Yeah, we take our phones where we go. So
yeah, exactly.
Makes sense.
And then the last thing I'll say about the Unpacked event is that they talked about AI a lot, whether it be Galaxy's own, Galaxy AI, or whether it be Gemini, which comes on these phones. By default, you get 6 months worth of Gemini for free. And then, of course, you probably would have to pay Google for it if you wanted to keep up with that. But they talked about that a lot. And then they did mention a few times the new, circle to search. So circle to search has gotten, from what they say, significantly better than what it was before. And it wasn't bad before. It actually did what it did really, really, really well. It's got some new features to it. So, so those are the big things that have come out of the Unpacked event. Like I said, they're not getting deep into the specs of everything other than telling you what the general hardware is. These are more commercials to where they take an hour and they just let Earth know, here's our new stuff that we are now selling. So all of these devices are available for pre-order today, and you can actually pick them up, I believe, on the 25th.
So are you going to be picking one up on the 25th, Rob?
So here's the thing. I just showed you my Galaxy S22. I actually went to the Galaxy website or to the Samsung website. They still are going to give me like $1,000 for this.
Jeez. Wow. Well, then why wouldn't you do this? Of course you're going to do
almost
this.
$1,000. So yeah. I have to think about that. I have to think about that. So it would this phone does not have a data plan on it. It's just I just use it with Wi-Fi. So I would be having to that's where they're going to get me. I have to sign up an actual Verizon plan to get that off. But the fact that they're going to give me so much on a 3-year-old phone, I might have to think about it. Maybe I will pick up a, one of the flips or something like that. Maybe the Flip FE. I don't know.
What do you use for your daily use then?
Oh, I am the Galaxy S25 Ultra for my daily use.
You're on 25 Ultra now. Okay.
So that is my daily
take
driver.
Take the 22 and toss it in.
Interesting.
Basically get the Fold for half price or the other Flip for even more than half price.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you're sort of a phone flipper anyway.
Yeah, he is.
I have more phones than any person should have that are in good and functioning order. Like just on my desk, I have three older, Samsung
they're
on my desk. This is just on the desk. Behind me, there's probably 2 or 3 other phones and a BlackBerry too. And then I got a shelf over there. There's probably got 15 or 20 BlackBerries on it. So hey, I got a lot of stuff.
I don't think there's anything wrong with any of this. I think this is there should be a new reality show called Phone Flipper, and you should be the guy and do it on TLC or wherever, whoever wants it. Let's go.
I tell you what, if we ever have to go back to 3G, I got you covered. I got all kind of devices.
You got all you need.
Yeah. You've got that. What's that BlackBerry you've got still in the box? That's from way back. Like, you got it nearby.
Is it a Storm?
I love this. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the BlackBerry Bold. Let's see if we can
Oh,
get
the
that
Bold.
focus
Yes,
here.
I used to have one. I
Oh, my
love it.
So yeah,
gosh,
this
dude.
is BlackBerry Bold. I do say new in the box. This has never been used. I did open the box so that I could take the
Cellophane's
battery
off.
out. So the cellophane is off. I also have one that is still in the cellophane. That is literally
okay.
a storage unit, though. Probably shouldn't be because it's got a lithium-ion battery in it, and I don't check on it that often.
Mhm.
But yeah, I tend to keep the BlackBerries because you never know. Research in Motion or now BlackBerry, they might make a comeback at some point.
One of these days.
Gotta stay ready.
Let's talk prices. Everybody thinks these foldable prices seem high. I mean, we're talking $2,000 for the fold, and what is it for the flip again?
The Flip 7 comes in at 11. It's $1,099.99, so $1,100. And
Yeah.
the Flip 7 FE comes in.
Roger,
at,
you seem to think these prices are excessive.
For foldables, maybe. I mean, part of it is that foldables are still in that range where they're positioned mostly as premium or mid-tier premium phone options. And there was an interesting article that kind of grabbed my eye from Katie Collins over at CNET that's titled "Gen Z Deserves a Cute Flip Phone. Samsung's cheaper foldable is too pricey to be it," lamenting the high price points for Samsung's foldable, specifically the FE, which is sort of designed to be more of a budgetary conscious phone. But at $900, so kind of pricey. I mean, like for me, my upper tier of what I would pay, because I don't do subscribe to a plan and get the discount on the phone, is like $500-600 at most out of pocket. And so I do actually have an interest in getting a foldable. My cousin has one. My friend has one. One has the Moto. One has the Samsung, the older Flip. And it's like, yeah, I'm so close to getting one, but it's like, just I can't really justify the price at this point. And I've always
if the
wondered,
prices come way down, though, you're down to at least clown a little.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. Market research at IDC notes that while the market is growing for foldables, that means the people are companies are able to sell them. The number of units sold is below what they've projected, and the number one a roadblock in sort of the uptake, of course, is price. And so, it's a chicken or egg thing. But I've wondered, like, will it have to be lower price points or have that one killer functionality that you can only do with a foldable that will get people glomming onto that form factor?
Why do you think the prices are so high?
Yeah.
Why? Like, why do I think it's
why do
because
any of us? Yeah, let's talk about that. Why do we think these prices are so?
I think you don't have the economies of scale yet that you do with current smartphones, where you can say,
yeah, but older smartphones weren't this high.
Yeah,
even
but
before they hit
also
the
didn't have
economy
a
of
hinge
scale.
and a folding screen.
So
I
it's
think
the complication of
that
making it.
particular manufacturer.
That's
If
kinda
they
what I
were
think.
able to move 50% more units than they are, I think they would be able to drop the price, because now you could amortize that cost across a larger number of units than you can.
But I
currently.
mean, if it costs a lot to make every hinge, the more you make, the more it costs. Kind of depends on where that cost is coming from.
Mm-hmm. So I have to say, I was kind of shocked that the FE, the Flip 7 FE, was $900. I thought it was going to be like in the $750 range.
Yeah,
because for
that's only
$900
$200 less than the regular one.
it's only $200 less, and at $900 you are well into the flagship phone price.
Oh, yeah.
You're at the bottom end of a flagship iPhone, a flagship Galaxy, S25. This is an expensive phone. So I thought that they were going to have something come out that would actually compete with Motorola. These really don't. They really don't. The Motorola phones are still $250 less than this.
Yeah.
Starting. So I was kind of shocked by that. I do wonder, is Samsung saying, you know what, let's sell these. They are decently selling. Let's sell them for as much as we can get them for, because as soon as the iPhone comes out, it's going to be at a premium. So we don't want to be less than what it's going to come out when there's a foldable iPhone. I don't know. Is that a thought, something that goes into their thought price?
Yeah,
because
there could be something to Samsung saying keep the price high, because it's much more difficult to raise a price than it is to lower a price.
Exactly.
And if we keep it high and then Apple comes out with a phone and we're either already less expensive or we can drop our price to be even more less expensive, then that'll make us look good. That's not a bad idea. Because like, why are the Razrs less expensive? If it is the hinge, like we were speculating, wouldn't that keep the Motorola phones more expensive too?
I don't know that the Motorola phones are competing with iPhones. I don't think that there's someone who's looking at it.
But they're competing with Samsung, and Samsungs are more expensive.
They are competing with Samsung, but Samsung sells so many daggone phones. Like we're talking about 3 of them a day, but they got 100 other ones that they're selling. And they have a lot of other phones, and not necessarily in the S lineup, but in like the Galaxy A lineup that are very, very price competitive, and even from a spec standpoint, competitive with the Motorola phones. But Motorola is really not competing with iPhone. There's not a lot of folks saying, do I really want a Motorola phone or do I really want an iPhone, and make a decision there.
Yeah.
It's usually going to be that flagship higher end phone that they're saying, do I want this or do I want the iPhone?
But that does sort of like doesn't answer like why is the kind of cost conscious model of the Samsung lineup still pricier than something comparable from Motorola?
Yeah,
unless,
is Motorola selling at a loss because they just want to gain market share?
Unless
That's
they're
a great
trying to
question.
recoup development costs and they're trying to do it on the front end. Maybe
I do. My gut likes the idea that Samsung's like, we're a premium brand. We can't underprice because then we won't be seen as a premium brand unless we put an A in front of our model number. Then it's okay. And you don't see them doing any A series foldables yet.
Not yet. That was a rumor that we might see some of those things coming out in the not too distant future. And I would fully imagine that if there is an A series foldable, they would absolutely compete very, very well with Motorola. Yeah. So that's kind of what I would expect. So I think really, a part of this at least is that we're keeping the price high because we can afford to keep the price high right now because we know that Apple's working on something and it's not going to be cheap, and it'll be harder for us to raise a price than whatever be for us to lower one.
And they spec these out well. Like these foldables, they have top processors and like tons of RAM and all of that. So it's not like you aren't getting something for what you pay for. It's just more than you would if you didn't get a foldable.
Right.
It's weird because the A models to me have always come across as something that sort of trails the market. Okay, like now the industry's discovered the floor of where the market is at, and then Samsung has like an A model to fill that segment of the consumer tree.
Yeah.
And so when you see a foldable A, now it's super mainstream.
And that's kind of where the Motorola Razr Flip is. Like if you look at the internal specs, it's lagging. Yeah. So those are cheaper specs, and they can sell it cheaper. And it's more like an A series in that respect.
This is the thing. The one thing I've always missed about my old StarTAC phone was the clamshell. I'm not gonna lie, because it's just there's so many times where I've dropped my phone.
You should get a Razr.
I know.
They're not that expensive.
You're tempted, aren't you?
Listen, part of me, perhaps it's my Chinese American upbringing, but the part of me has to use something until the wheels come off, and then it's time to upgrade. Like I gotta suck the very essence of a product to know I've truly used it.
It doesn't help that Motorola is owned by Lenovo, which is a Chinese company, right?
Whoa, Tom! I don't know what that connection's about.
Well, no, you're saying it's a Chinese American. It's like, no, it's the saving the money, not the where it was made.
It's the saving the money, but more of like you're getting your use out of it, right? There are people who will drive a car until the engine falls out because you've truly grabbed every ounce of value that was possible out of that vehicle.
I think Rob and I can back you up that the Midwest has a lot in common.
That is true. Here's one of the other things too. Just like with iPhones, folks will tell you, if you want to get an iPhone and you don't want to spin what the new iPhone gets, don't get a 16, get a 15, get a 14.
Yeah.
You can still get the Galaxy S Flip 6 brand new in the box right from Samsung, and it's probably going to cost $150 less than what these ones do. That's generally how they've done it. So they could just be saying on these are premium devices. If you want them, this is what the price is. If you want one that costs less, get last year's model. That's a still really, really good device that will have years of support from Google One.
It's essentially like buying an A model, right? Because it's older, right? But it's just not marketed that way.
Or they're trying to give carriers some sort of option to kind of bundle, like what Rob was saying. We're like, hey, we're going to cut you a great deal. You just sign up for Verizon or T-Mobile or whomever.
That's how I got my Pixel Fold. It was $1,700 list, but I traded in a phone that gave me a $700 credit and then got like a 12-month commitment on Google Fi and with a discount on that, so that it was basically I didn't pay for Google Fi service for 12 months, and that made it worthwhile. But it was that bundle thing, to your point, Roger. So there's all kinds of ways to approach.
It's totally that car dealership model where you get the factory cash back if you do this and you sign up.
Yeah.
Pay me the keys.
Well, folks, if you are watching us on the YouTube live stream, could you do us a favor? Just lean forward on that phone or that laptop or even that Roku or whatever you're watching it on. Click that like button. It'll help us. It barely cost you anything but a little, muscle contraction. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to our channel so you always know when we're going live. Axios had a story recently called Gaming's Ad Dilemma, about the paradox of an industry that's worth billions, but gaming ad revenue is not worth billions. Scott, what's going on here?
Well, it's in some ways this is a culmination of a prophecy that many made a long time ago. Maybe
it was foretold to us.
It was foretold 10 years ago. A lot of the sites, a lot of the games journalists, quote unquote, that were singing a lot of desperation about the future of influencer, streamer culture, YouTube culture, was going to cut into their bottom line or their ability to generate ad revenue from the content they create. And we're talking about sites like Kotaku and IGN and any number of gaming sites, which recent years have been a lot of consolidation. I think that's a result of this. But basically, it came true. The streaming culture and the influencer culture is a place where real money is spent and real money is made. There are games out there who succeeded entirely, well, at least initially, on their favorite streamer, somebody big, playing that game and saying, you guys should get this. As weird as that may sound to some people, it doesn't sound very journalistic. It sounds like maybe that's, you're just going to pick your favorites. Unfortunately, that's exactly what it is. And it works. And so what a lot of these companies are doing, these big giant gaming companies who are raking in billions of dollars of revenue, they're spending less on ad spends, partly because that's how they report it. What they're spending a lot of money on is these influencers, streamers, and others who get big wads of money, more than they were ever spending on ad spends, but they don't have to report it as advertising spent money spent on advertising, even though the net effect is the same. Or even greater in this regard. They are not required to say, well, I gave all this money to Asmongold to talk about our game, therefore it is ad spend, because it's
it goes in a different bucket. They have to disclose it just in a different way.
Just a different bucket. You're exactly right. They still have to disclose it. But what it means is your traditional outlets that have staff writers who are constantly either doing articles about breaking news or interesting industry moves, and everybody all the way down to people who are just writing reviews for games, giving their 8 out of 10 for something, that is becoming less and less interesting to the player bases. And it is not nearly it doesn't give the return that it used to, because it used to kind of be the only way to get this stuff. And now, if you can just go look at your favorite dude, he's sitting in front of his computer going, this game is rad, that's enough for people to just go for it. And I don't want to be too reductive on what that process is. There are plenty of content creators out there who are doing really amazing work at really telling people what the games are about, playing the heck out of them, really going those extra miles to show you what you may or may not be spending your $60 on. But it can range from everything from like, thumbs up, I like this game, to here's a big 12-hour video I made to chronicle the thing, and there's everything sort of in between. On top of that, you're getting a lot of free advertising because a lot of content creators and streamers don't have those deals. So they're just doing it because they love it, or they're getting revenue from YouTube or somebody else. And these companies are like, maybe pull back a little. We don't need to spend so much money. Everyone's talking about our game for free. Why are we worried about it? Sort of stuff. So it's just, we're seeing this change that everybody sort of predicted. And I have to think this is not all that specific to games journalism. I think it probably affects, for the sake of this show, tech journalism. And if anything, Tom's representative of the kind of thing or the kind of shift that happened, where more independent voices were getting greater voice and more mainstream publications a little bit less so. Not
and that's
entirely,
happening
but,
in other
yeah.
like that's happening in political news. It's happening in all kinds of things where people are they're getting laid off by the traditional media companies like CNN because they're not getting the ad dollars anymore.
Yeah.
And then they're going and starting a Substack and being like, I'm making as much or more as I was as a salaried person.
Yeah, and you've got people on the other end of that going, I trust this more because he's no longer beholden to the man. I still love his work, but he's off here independent now.
The difference, though, is that the CNN advertiser, was a soap company, right? Or a car company. The Substack that the political independent writes isn't covering those things. So that ad money just moves over there and says, can I sponsor your podcast? Can I sponsor your newsletter? Whereas in gaming, the ad money isn't following the independence so much as it's finding other kinds of independence, if that makes sense.
It also eliminates a ton of middlemen. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
A lot of this is now a sort of a direct thing, or at the very least, like in the big cases, you got an agent who reps like 6 huge streamers, and it's one layer of communication.
I mean, what's interesting is, at least in the Axios article, is that one of the things they note is like having media companies kind of dedicated to gaming coverage has definitely been pulled back.
Yeah.
The site that Vox Media is selling Polygon, Washington Post is shuttering Launcher, and Vice Media is killing Waypoint. But publishers are other publishers leaning into gaming coverage, but not necessarily as just a separate siloed entity. For example, the New York Times, BuzzFeed, and Vulture and Atlantic, in the way that like the Wirecutter does kind of tech reviews, but it's for products that people buy, and it's still part of. You're part of the New York Times. It's not like Wirecutter's, like a separate entity, and it's very interesting because I think one of the things about the gaming, what you were alluding to, Scott, is like the gaming space is so atomized. Right, you don't have your traditional chunk of people that you can easily, peg into one ad buy, and then instead you have to be a little more judicious. You have to find out where your ad dollars get the most traction, and that tends to be streamers and influencers.
The New York Times and BuzzFeed get car companies and soap companies to advertise. Polygon was never going to get that. If you advertised on Polygon, you were reaching gamers. So there's some non-endemics, right? There's some sodas and snacks and stuff. Doritos would advertise there. But the majority of the money was coming from companies that wanted to reach gamers who made games. And those companies are realizing we don't need that to do it. Whereas the soap company might still advertise on the New York Times, and then the New York Times could boost its numbers by getting a gamer in the door and then saying, hey, we also have these other things to offer.
Yeah, where people are getting their stuff now, YouTube content creators. They're getting it from podcasts, like some that I run. I'm part of that fabric. The same thing goes for directs from the big companies. There's a lot less, like E3 used to be kind of an advertisement event. Now they don't need it. It's just Microsoft's running a stream, and everyone can go look at it on Twitch or YouTube. You don't have to think too much about it. Here's what's interesting, though. More and more people are leaning into LLMs to rank me the top 10 Zelda games ever made or whatever. And they go and they see this. Well, where are the LLMs getting that data? In some cases, they're doing real-time searches to achieve that data. Sometimes it's stuff they've already been trained on. But either way, they're pulling it from the traditional stuff that we're talking about getting dinged here. And I think that snake might eat itself eventually, because it's very useful right now to say, what did everyone generally think of Super Mario Kart World after launch? And it gives you a really great breakdown. Well, part of the reason it does is it went to the Polygons, the Kotakus, the Nintendo gaming or the Nintendo fan sites, all these places, coagulated the data and put it in one place. Well, as a gamer or someone trying to get quick info, that's really helpful. But if all of that contributes to, or whether it's connected or not, these companies lose their ad revenue, then the LLMs lose their data, and then
or they get it from Vulture and the Atlantic, BuzzFeed, New York Times, etc. Right?
Or they just mine Reddit, because one thing Reddit is never short of is opinions.
Oh yeah, no, that's a really good question, and it's also
might be more accurate if you properly mine Reddit to discover the sentiment, right?
I mean,
we don't have the breakdown, but I have a feeling a bunch of that ad revenue or that ad spend of the 5.7 or roughly $8.6 billion that will happen in 2025, which again is lower. It's less than 5% of the U.S. ad budgets going to gaming. But I'll bet a lot of that's being spent in Reddit, because there are so many gaming-related ads in Reddit on subreddits that have nothing to do with gaming. I think they think and probably know that there's a massive buyer's market that uses Reddit every day, and they're spending all that money in there.
So Scott, do you think that the industry publications could actually go and start putting some of these streamers on payroll and just get them to do what they do for them, as compared to just going directly to YouTube and doing it? You're not going to get the biggest folks, because why would I come to you when I'm already as big as I am? But the folks that are up and coming, it might make sense for them to actually look at them and put them on staff.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. The only downside of that is when you get big enough and influential enough, the temptation to go off on your own, because there is real huge money to be made, is there. But also, gamers are weird about this. They don't like the man. They don't like anybody working for the man. And they love that sense of independence, even if their source is like lousy at being independent in their opinions and is swayed by the $20 million contract.
I think that sentiment, though, is generational. I think there's going to be a point where people are going to grow out of that.
I do, too. I think there will be a swing back.
They already are.
Yeah, I think there'll be a swing back. I think there's a comeback coming, maybe not in maybe boutique ways, maybe not in mass market ways, but zines are going to make a comeback. Digital sites that are dedicated to a very specific gaming niche.
Technically kind of are.
Yeah. Except in that case, people love the idea that, hey, my favorite journalist went off and did a Substack. Eventually we go, why is everyone on Substack?
Yeah, but how do you become your favorite journalist if, right? Like, no one says, oh, that's my favorite Substacker.
No,
but
there's
how
some
does
chicken
someone
and
become
egg
a
problem.
YouTube star, right?
Yeah.
It used to be how would you become a YouTube star without being on TV? Well, now you can. You just
you can.
I mean, to kind of answer a little bit of Rob's question, I'm wondering if those magazine quote unquote outlets start just become talent agencies, in the sense that I handle a number of high profile influencers. I can figure out all these contracts and work them out so they're in your best interest, right? You don't have to necessarily go through the legal loopholes to make sure you have your lawyers on point and all that stuff. Sort of to kind of be that sort of
there's a lot of that going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, let's get to the most important story of the day, because it involves me. There's an outrage bait story out there that The Drive reported back on June 23rd. So it's been kicking around for a while. The New York Times just picked it up. Hertz's Thrifty car rental charged someone $440 for a 1-inch tire scuff on a rental car because an AI scanner discovered it. So the scuff is there. But I think what was frustrating for the person is they felt like the scuff wasn't sufficient to pay $440 for. Just one of those things that happens, normal wear and tear. And they were alerted immediately by the AI, which was doing its job, going like, there wasn't a scuff there. Now there is. We've processed it. This is the fee for that. And the person said, great, I want to appeal that. I want to talk to a human, and was having a hard time finding a human. He got images before and after to review. They offered him a discount if he paid fast. That's part, we don't want to deal with your complaint, and part, like, sometimes people don't pay us at all, so we'll encourage you to like pay now so you don't have to pay more later. But it took him more than the time that it would take to get the discount to get a response from customer service. So there's that aspect of this story that I think is what's making it go around, even though most people who go through Hertz through these machines don't get fined. I am an example of that. However, I think a lot of people probably don't know they're going through these machines. I went and I was out at Brian Brushwood's for a workshop last weekend, and I rented a car. And as I was coming out, I had to go through this big arch. It looked like the arch from Star Trek's holodeck. And I'm like, that's some kind of scanning thing. I wonder what it's scanning for. Because there was nothing that they said in the rental system that let me know what they were actually doing with that system. And then when I returned the car, same thing. Had to drive through the arch again. Well, now I know. It was scanning my car on the way out, scanning it on the way in. I did not get an immediate notice that anything was wrong, everything was fine, et cetera, et cetera. I kind of love the idea of this. It's a company called UVI that's doing it. They have a long history of doing this kind of technology for fleets. So they've done it for Toyota, for Volvo, for GM, for Hyundai, both for dealerships, but also for factories. CarMax uses it for its own vehicle inspections, just so they can like categorize the car when they list it. Amazon uses it for its own fleet inspections. There's an insurance company that uses it as part of its claims processing to kind of speed up that inspection that people do, and when you have a claim and say, yep, nope, there's a dent there, all of that sort of thing. So I don't have a problem with this technology, but Rob, I know you guys talked about it on the Tech John on Monday. Have you evolved your thoughts since then?
No, I probably actually went deeper into the weeds. So here's the thought for me is that I don't have a problem with a human being walking around the car and, with their clipboard and checking off the normal, things that, that's a dent. That shouldn't be there. This is a cracked windshield. That shouldn't be there. I'm good with that. But when you're using a robot to get every single thing that a lot of it would be considered, I would think, normal wear and tear, and then you get a $450 bill for it almost instantaneously, it just seems to me like we actually titled that episode of the Tech John, Hertz really wants their people to pay for these rental car insurance things that they get, where you buy the additional insurance. And it seems like, I would like to see the numbers after they have this system in place. Will you see the number of people who actually say, you know what, I've been bit too many times now, let me go ahead and get that insurance and pay a little bit more for the rental car? Because I do believe you should pay for the damage that you do to a car, but a half-inch, scuff on the rim costing you $450, that sounds like normal wear and tear to me.
I think that's where I meet you, because I am not worried about people getting constantly charged, or we'd be hearing about it. I think the system actually works really well. And when I dug into it to be like, what system are they using? This system is well proven. It's been around for decades now. So I don't think it's usually going to get things wrong. In fact, the fact that it's been out in Atlanta for a while and they've started to roll it out in other places like Austin tells me like we'd be hearing a lot more of these stories if it was error prone. But no system is perfect. First of all, this is not an LLM, so it's not going to hallucinate. It's machine learning, computer vision. But second of all, no system is perfect. Even the person walking around your car is not perfect. There are plenty of examples of people getting a bill for damage that they're like, wait a minute, when I turned the car in, there was no damage on that. So this could actually prevent some of that happening, where the damage happens after you turn the car in or before you took the car away. However, where I will meet you, Rob, is if I get that bill, there should be an easy way for me to talk to a human about, hey, wait a minute. I don't think this is right for a scuff. And I think this is a great example of that.
Yeah,
right.
I think I agree with both. I'm kind of with Tom on the whole. I think this tech is cool and is actually really good. I'll bet you money. Here's what I think. I think these companies who are implementing the system, so let's say the dealerships or the Hertz rental cars, these companies, I think they are very hesitant. They've set a high tolerance bar, because I think if you charge for every little scuff, if every little ding or scratch gets charged for, you're asking for people to kind of avoid your industry, because it's impossible not to take a car, have it in LA on the freeway for a week for a business thing, and turn it in and not expect a little rock chip here, a little scratch there. So I think that the tolerances have to be in a place where regular wear and tear makes sense, and you're just looking for stuff where it was egregious or otherwise unusual. And it sounds to me, because we don't hear about this so much, they probably found a pretty good level of that. And I don't think they want to go lower than that, because there will be a revolt for every scratch. Nobody's going to let them live that down.
Here's the thing that I would want. I would want, if this is the system you're using, I want the report before I drive off.
Oh yeah,
because I've had multiple instances, two times, where I have taken pictures in one case, taken a video in another case of the car, before I drove off with it, and then got a picture in the mail that didn't match up with my picture after the fact. That's happened twice.
Sure. And
so because it's happened twice, I don't necessarily trust you. I think you're trying to get me. So because of that, if you're going to use this system, I'm cool with that. Yeah. You just need to make sure I get the picture before, because your pictures that you're giving me right now need to match up with the pictures that I'm actually taking on my phone.
No, I agree. Like make it super transparent. That's the benefit of this, right? Is I got instant confirmation. This is what the system said your car looks like. This is what it found. Because I honestly I've done that where I'm like, there's a ding on here. And these days with companies, they have a lot of like, you just walk out, you use your app, you get in the car yourself. You never talk to a person, right? Mm-hmm. You just go and you show your license at the exit, and then you're off. So I've taken pictures of those. Like, I hope that I want to be able to prove that this was on there, and this would help with that, to say like, look, your own machine even showed that thing was on there before. That'd be helpful.
Yeah, ultimately, it's not the machine. It's just the corporate policy.
It's the customer service, right?
Exactly.
That's the problem.
That's it.
Yeah.
And
it's not the technology here.
And unfortunately, when you put the technology in there, in a way, it becomes sort of a shield for everything else, right? Like, oh, it's the technology, it's the machine learning, it's something. But it's never like, oh, geez, maybe you should have a better policy around this, or maybe it's...
Because honestly, Rob, if they were to do what you suggest, and I get a picture immediately, and then I get a picture immediately on my app as soon as I drive in, and before I even get out of the car to unpack my bags and go to the airport, that would make me feel so much better. I would be able to clearly know, like, okay, this is the data we're all working from. I think that would be a huge improvement on this. But if there's no way for me to talk to anyone as soon as I get that, right, then that's a problem with customer service. And don't give me a chatbot, give me a real person, please.
Yeah, like that's the balance they're trying to figure out right now. And I think I'm honestly impressed there aren't already more complaints. I didn't know this existed until this story, and we did.
Yeah, it's pretty new for Hertz anyway.
Yeah, and so to hear about it and know that it's actually kind of functioning as normal, I don't know.
And I am a testament that I was able to pass through these machines unscathed.
Did you do anything to that car, and you're just holding back on us, not telling us what you did?
Not really. No, okay. I did park it on Brian Brushwood's property, which is unpaved and gravelly. But yeah, no, and I didn't. Yeah,
man,
I guarantee at some point someone is going to have an accident driving through the machine. I just see it coming.
Oh yeah,
like, your machine caused me to hit it. I see it coming.
That's a pretty good call. Yeah. All right, before we get out of here, let's check out the mailbag.
So Bede had some thoughts on last Wednesday's DTNS Live, where we talked about the AI upscaling and surveillance cameras, and Scott mentioned doing a zoom and enhance on a package to see if it's addressed to you. In my experience with the technologies like frame and image generation, they're still prone to hallucination and work best when you give them the most data and keep it constrained to small changes, just like LLMs. In case of enhancing a video feed that you can read what a label says, unless it's already mostly legible, that information simply doesn't exist. The AI can't guess based on the pixels that do exist, but it would be most accurate if the only trained data on images or parcels in the same location, lighting, orientation, etc. This is why things like NVIDIA DLSS look best when you're upscaling from 1080p to 1440p, not 720p to 4K.
Very good point. And let me answer this real quick. I think that it's an extremely good point. But where we are getting is to the point where the machines will learn enough and know enough to see all other aspects of a thing you're trying to read the text on. And let's say it's very blurry and in the background. But this, we'll use a Coke can as an example. The machine can go, well, it's this height, and we know that because of relative size of other things. We know that it's round, cylindrically round, and it's about this tall. It also is all red because we have that. We have a color profile of everything else, and nothing else has been altered, so we know this is a consistent red. It's got a hint of a white stripe. We're almost 99.9% sure that's a Coke can, says the computer, and it gives you that result. I think that stuff, while not 100%, is where this is going. So the zoom and enhance stuff, where it makes up stuff that you can't see otherwise, is not just based on what it's seeing. It's based on what's around it, what was the time of day, a million other trained factors that have nothing to do with that image will help that model determine that that's a Coke can in the distance. That's where I think this is headed. So I agree with them to the point where, yeah, it's kind of, that would be making something out of nothing. But that's exactly what I'm saying. They will start to make something out of nothing because the nothing can be determined
but
from
will
other
it be
data.
accurate, or will they put a scuff on my wheel that wasn't there?
Well, that's the percentage thing, right? I don't know what that will be. I'm guessing it'll be in the high 90s, but it will be suspect for sure.
I will take you up on that bet, Scott. I do remember the whole kerfuffle real quick about the whole Samsung taking a picture of the moon, and the AI just inserted the picture of for Wikipedia of the moon instead of enhancing the photo that the person took directly with the moon.
It's got issues. I'm just saying that the goal is that's where they want to go. They like anti-terrorism things. They don't want to stop at just, well, that's a little blurry, we're not going to figure it out. This technology, it gives them a bunch of data that can help them learn things that you can't see. Now, I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's ethical, and I'm not saying it's 100%. It's probably 70%. I don't know what the percentage would be. But that stuff's coming whether we like it or not.
That's why I walk around with a passport in my pocket just in case.
So I now have a fear because I wear a lot of hats when I go outside. There's just going to be a picture of a tall dude in a hat. It's like, well, based on these pictures of Rob, that's probably Rob. No, you need to see my face.
Wear hats?
You need to see my face.
He has a physical flesh guard for the sun. It sticks out like this. We don't know how he evolved that, but everybody else was,
as long as that training data is broad enough, right? I mean, I used to be on a network where there were only 2 other Asian guys besides me that were on camera. Guess who they assumed everyone was?
Those were humans doing that, though, not machines.
Oh no, that's what
and I actually know which humans specifically you're talking
data,
about.
I'm sure you could mitigate.
I'm just certain that 6 months to a year to 2 years from now, we'll be on this show. It'll be a Wednesday, and there'll be a story where we finally hit the 99 percentile correctness on a model
I'm
like
going
this.
to make a
I'm not saying it's
tall
good.
Coke can that's
Just
of the
saying
same proportions and stick it in each of my
I'm just saying it's coming. And I'm not even saying you can't game the system. Of course you can. And then the machine learns and then it does more. I'm just saying that's where it's headed. Whether it's good or not, that is not my determination to make.
I'll call it Poca-Pola.
Well, folks, remember, you can send your comments in to feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. And of course, if you're a patron, you can comment on anything we post to the patron as well.
Thank you, Scott Johnson, for joining us today. What do you got going on to tell folks about?
Oh, there's so much going on. I would like to point people's eyeballs to themedicalshow.com. I'm so dumb. Themedical.show. It's a weird domain, but you'll get used to it. This is a brand new show called The Medical Show, which I do with Dr. Jerry Tolbert, a 20-year veteran of family medicine who decided to sit down with me on a pretty regular basis and create a series of shows about modern medical technology, how they affect you directly, changes in things. And this upcoming episode 3, which we're recording this evening, is all about the changes to the scheduling and the approval process to vaccines in this country. And there's a lot of yelling about it, but what's the actual data? What are doctors saying about it? What are pharmacies saying? What is anyone saying that's outside of just media having fights and pundits talking about it? We're going to get into the weeds on that and figure out why and how it affects you directly. And that's just one of our episodes. We're going to cover just about everything that affects you and your personal health. So check it out if that sounds interesting. It is called The Medical Show. You can find it anywhere that you get your podcasts, or if it's just as easy for you, go on over to themedical.show.
So, folks, during the show, you've been submitting titles over at DTNS.showbot.tv, and we've got a bunch of them over there. There's over 64 submissions and over 110 votes at this point. Let's start with the one right at the top here. Rob is a phone flipper by Philly Codehound.
Yeah, that's pretty compelling. We also got You Got to Know When to Fold Them. You knew that one, Kenny Rogers.
I like that one. That's a good one.
That's pretty good.
Badfink had a good one. Scuff Luck.
Scuff Luck.
Good.
That's good. These are excellent. These are excellent. Zoe's got a good one. Hurts customers.
Poor Thrifty. They're the ones who actually did this, and they're just getting left out of this because they're the subsidiary, and you can't make as many puns with them. Yep. The Build-A-Bot Workshop. That's a good. I like that one, Clinton. Nice.
Very good.
So, Roger, what did we decide to go with today?
We went with Zoe Brings Bacon's Foldables for Families.
That's nice.
Fantastic. Hey, man, we're really appreciative of everybody who supports the show, even if it's just by your eyeballs. We stream on LinkedIn. We stream on YouTube. As I mentioned earlier in the show, Laminar Rainbow gave us a super sticker that kicks a little money our way to help us keep things going. Thank you, Laminar Rainbow. Thank you, everybody on Twitch. Superfan Super 23, Superfan Super 23 gave us a follow. Zoe cheered us with some bits. Paley Glendale did as well. Ryan in Minneapolis is back for the 19th month, said, as I noted in the Discord, there's a Ben Franklin 20 miles from me in Grand Marais, Minnesota. Hockey Sticks S resubscribed with Prime for the 43rd month. Pack NW Fallstar gave out a tier 1 sub to Queen Code Monkey yesterday during Android Faithful. Big thanks to everybody who supports us in all the myriad ways, including patreon.com/DTNS, where Galtaman gave us a raise. Thank you, Galtaman. Yes. Appreciate when somebody's like, you know what? I'm already supporting the show, but it's worth even more. If, however, you're like, I am the kind of person who can't just give money away. I need to get something in response. I have got something for you. Please exit through our gift shop, dailytechnewsshow.com/store. We have Scott Johnson art on a glass. Perfect for your root beer or sarsaparilla. Yeah. We've got purple shirts. Yeah, we got all kinds of colors in here. We got that DTNS Live logo. We got a sticker with Roger's face on it, and one with Sarah and me too. So go check it out. We all kinds of cool stuff, and it's a great way to support the show. Patreon.com/DTNS. By the way, if you buy something there, send us a pic. Let us know. Like, hey, here it is in the wild. We'd love to see it. That is going to do it for us today. You can watch us live Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern, 2000 UTC. Find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. Back tomorrow with Jen Cutter joining us. Talk to you then.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.